You're listening to News Talk 710 KURV. Roxanne Garcia, Davis Franken, and I'm excited because we're going to be talking about something that always, I think, gets me pumped, and it's straw purchases. And I know a lot of people don't really know what straw purchases are, so we're here going to explain to you what it is. We have Noel Rangel with the McAllen office. He's an ATF resident agent in charge, and Frank Ortega with the Brownsville office. And they're here to explain to us what straw purchases are, how citizens that if anything happens or if they're recruited by someone, they can avoid that. I thank you for joining us. First question for you gentlemen is, what are straw purchases for those that don't know what they are or what it is?
I think the best way to describe a straw purchase is when an individual acquires or purchases a firearm on behalf of another individual.
Mm-hmm. How old do you have to be in order to do that? Because when someone thinks of firearm, like we were talking before, people think they have to be 21 and over. So I guess the question is, who is being recruited for this and who is doing the recruiting?
Yes, typically you have to be 18 years old in order to purchase a rifle, and you have to be 21 years old to purchase a pistol. So the current trend that we've been seeing recently is that individuals between the ages of 20 to 25 are being recruited to straw purchase firearms.
And who's the one doing the recruiting?
It varies. Most of the time, the recruiters have strong ties to individuals in Mexico. They, in essence, are recruited by individuals to enter the United States and look for and recruit individuals who can legally pass a background check and obtain and purchase a firearm.
You mentioned that at 18 years old, you can buy a rifle. Can you define what rifle is? Because I'm sure people don't think of AR-15s when they think an 18-year-old is legally allowed to purchase it, but we know that it is legally allowed. Like they are allowed to purchase an AR-15 at 18. Can you?
Yes, that is correct. An AK-47 type rifle and an AR-15 type rifle can be legally purchased by an 18-year-old. A rifle is usually described as having a barrel of more than 16 inches and is typically designed to be fired from the shoulder.
What about a shotgun as well? Because I was always under the impression it was just shotguns. I never knew that 18-year-olds, I'm not kidding, could legally purchase an AR-15.
Yes, they can also purchase a shotgun, and typically a shotgun is defined as having a smooth bore barrel.
Are those 3-round burst, or how, like the AR-15, or how is it? How do you define when it comes to semi-automatic weapons, for example? Because I know handguns, my Smith & Wesson is a 380, and it's a semi-automatic weapon. So does that make the difference?
Well, a semi-automatic weapon typically is when you pull the trigger, only one round is fired. Whereas a fully automatic rifle or a machine gun typically is defined when you pull that trigger, it'll expend the entire rounds in that particular firearm.
But those are illegal for us. We can't purchase those.
That is correct. Okay. A machine gun needs to be registered through the NFA.
All right. So I want to know, speaking about straw purchasing, is there a limit that a citizen can purchase guns? Because when does the red flags come up? When does a FFL dealer say, hey, this person has bought X amount of weapons, there's a red flag, or is there a limit for citizens to purchase weapons?
There is no limit on how many firearms an individual can purchase from a licensed dealer. Again, we're talking about licensed dealers here, and they can buy as many as they want. We educate our licensed dealers, and we do outreach programs with them to where we provide them current trends or certain indicators that'll help them identify these straw purchasers, so they can either deny or approve the transaction as they see fit, or they can contact law enforcement or ATF.
Do we know why these 20 to 25-year-olds that are being recruited for straw purchasing are saying yes to this? Is there a reason behind their decision to be involved in straw purchasing?
What we're seeing predominantly is that these individuals are in some type of financial hardship. They are young adults with responsibilities, and typically they get caught in a position where they need the money. And that makes them vulnerable. A recruiter will take advantage of that. Yeah. They will approach a individual who needs the money and offer them anywhere between $100 to $300 to purchase a rifle.
Wow, that's the voice of Noel Rangel with ATF resident agent in charge in the McAllen office and Frank Ortega in the Brownsville office. I wanted to ask you guys, what is the punishment for somebody that gets involved in straw purchasing? And another question is it easier or is it more common in the Valley? Is straw purchasing more common in the Valley than anywhere else in the state or in the country?
I think one of the reasons that we're seeing a lot of straw purchasing cases down in the Rio Grande Valley is due to our proximity to the border. Additionally, we have several federal firearms licensees in the area. So typically, an individual can purchase a firearm relatively quickly. A typical transaction ranges anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes. Now, if an individual has intentions to smuggle that
Mm-hmm.
particular firearm into Mexico, well, that border is very close by.
Yeah, yeah. And then the punishment if somebody, say I, for example, wanted to be involved in straw purchasing and I legally bought a weapon for myself, but I lied that it wasn't for myself, it was for someone else, what would be my punishment?
Well, one of the things that I want individuals to understand is that the actual violation is making false statements
Mm-hmm.
on an ATF form 4473. When you enter a federal firearms licensee and are attempting to purchase a firearm, you're required to fill out a particular form. That form
Mm-hmm.
is a 4473, and on that form, it asks you a series of questions. Now, most of those questions pertain to whether you are prohibited or have some type of
Mm-hmm.
disability from owning or possessing firearms. Now, one of the questions on that form is question 11A. That question asks the buyer if they are the actual purchaser of the firearm listed on that form.
Mm-hmm.
And it also has a warning on that question. It says if you are not the actual buyer or if you're acquiring the firearm on behalf of another individual, the dealer essentially cannot transfer that firearm to you. Now,
Question: if somebody were to do this and to take the guns into Mexico, how will we ever know that that person did that? Because I'm thinking, I know you can trace weapons, you can trace bullets here in the States, but what would happen if that happened in Mexico? If I buy a gun for my uncle in Mexico, and I never know what he does with it. How would I get in? How would I get caught?
well, ATF has over the past several years have trained
Hmm.
Mexican law enforcement
Okay,
officials
great.
on the utilization of our system called E-Trace. So a firearm, if recovered in a crime by the Mexican authorities, they do have access to the E-Trace system, and essentially they can initiate a firearms trace on that particular firearm.
That's great. I didn't know that. See, I'm glad y'all are here. What messages do you guys want to give our listeners, or if we have any FFL dealers? I know we do. I know they listen to us in the afternoon. FFL dealers. What messages would you have for them when it comes to straw purchasing? I guess what to be looking out for.
Just that it's not worth it.
Hmm.
Making $200 for purchasing a firearm or a rifle for any other individual, because that individual's trying to conceal their identity
Hmm.
so the firearm doesn't get traced back to them.
Hmm.
The penalties are up to 10 years for doing a straw purchase. And again, that is a felony. And, young individuals starting out nowadays will get, tagged with a
Hmm.
felony throughout for the rest of their lives. So $200, it's not worth it.
And for FFL dealers, I don't know if you guys can discuss that, like what to look out for, because how would someone know that they're doing what they're doing? That's the first question that comes to mind is if I'm buying a gun legally from an FFL dealer, say anywhere here in the valley, how does that dealer know or what to look out for? I don't know if you guys can disclose that or not, but it blows my mind how people just love to break laws.
Well, there are certain indicators that we train our federal firearms licensees as far as what to look out for.
Hmm.
Some of those things may be cash transactions, an individual coaching another individual as to what type of firearm to purchase. And there are other indicators.
Hmm.
So our dealers are well versed in being able to identify
Hmm.
potential straw purchases, and they are obligated not to make that sale if they suspect an individual is attempting to commit a straw purchase.
Is there anything else y'all want to add?
Yes. One last thing I wanted
Hmm.
to add was people lose sight that, like Mr. Rangel was saying, that it's a lying on the form
Hmm.
violation. But people lose sight that that firearm that's purchased ends up in Mexico, and we all know what's happening in Mexico.
Hmm.
And that firearm can be used to commit
Yeah.
a murder or something, or involved in drug
Hmm.
transactions down in Mexico. So that's the end result that started by someone just buying a gun for someone else here in the U.S.
I don't know if you guys can, last question, if you guys can talk about, has there been any experience or any cases here in the Valley that an 18-year-old got caught or 20-year-old got caught and he's just, I mean, now he's suffering the consequences, but does it happen often here in the Valley because we do live so close to Mexico?
It does. Over the past several years, we've prosecuted several individuals, and a lot of those individuals are young adults, 18, 20, 21 years old.
Her life is ruined just for $200.
That is correct. Again, I want to emphasize that
Yeah.
once you transfer that firearm to another individual, you lose control of what ultimately someone does with that firearm,
Wow.
and you could be held responsible for it.
So mom, dad, talk to your kids too, because if it's 18 and 25-year-olds, I mean, here in the valley, we still live with mom and dad until we're 30. So, so talk to your children. All right, that's Noel Rangel and Frank Ortega. They are ATF resident agents in charge here in the valley. Thank you guys for joining us. I appreciate it. Hopefully, we can do it again because I have so many more questions when it comes to all these. Just I love talking about this stuff. Anyway, thank you so much. We appreciate it. You're listening to 710 KURV.